Hello and welcome to another Comics Burst from the Full Force podcast, sponsored by Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, where we take an in-depth look at the newest G.I. Joe comics and related titles of the week, with me as your host, Chris, playing catch-up again, McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. Joining me on this episode is Brian, playing with Ketchup again, Hickey. On this instalment of your absolutely favourite kind of burst, we get into the two most recent issues of G.I. Joe A Real American Hero, 262 and 263. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this comics burst. G.I. Joe A Real American Hero issue 262. As Cobra continues its endless global onslaught against freedom, G.I. Joe meets their evil at every turn, determined to bring the good fight wherever it's needed. Artificial Intelligence Part 2. So, Brian, how you doing, buddy? It's been ages, mate.
00011011010111000111000.
Am I supposed to... I don't know what that means until you plonk something into the back of my head.
Yes. What it means is I've been working my ass off, a lot of late nights, a lot of not for the Full Force fans, unfortunately, but a lot of late nights, and nearly at the end of a very long journey, nearly there. So, but yes, it's great to be. I'm actually in work right now. I've just stepped out of the office to do this killer review of 262 and 263, and otherwise, I'm doing great.
Good. Okay, so let's get stuck into 262 first off. We get straight into the action with Destro, the Baroness, the Iron Grenadiers, the Aspid, and of course Alpha Prime 001 or Alpha 001, the Revanche leader. And it's kind of super Terminator sci-fi at this point, isn't it? I mean, the Aspid's caught in its clutches. Destro and the Baroness are firing on him, trying to keep him at bay. It's a cracking opening panel. It's really, really, really amazing and more brilliant Diaz work there. Shout out to Nitho Diaz, who was moaning at us for not doing a comics burst. So here you go, mate. You've got two in a row now, even though one of them isn't your issue.
Nitho brings the heat every time he works on this, and this is just a killer full page panel, and the artwork really says it all here. You've got Destro and the Baroness in deep trouble, and it's going down. Like there's a lot of movement in how this is done. Alpha Prime is literally pulling the Aspid and Destro and the Baroness closer into its clutches and bringing it down into this kind of green lava type mess that's just, as presumably as the Revanche base has just exploded all around it.
Yeah.
And Destro and the Baroness are unleashing everything they've got into this thing, and it ain't stopping it. It's just a killer piece from Nitho.
And there's so many, obviously, so it then attempts, obviously, to basically get hold of Destro and the Baroness so that it can kind of implant these little mind control, I suppose, tendrils into the back of into their brains, which is so like Invasion of the Body Snatchers or any of those kind of sci-fi old school movies. Obviously the pilots are the ones that get it first. The pilots, the Aspid, and Destro and the Baroness, they hold off for a little while, but then slowly but surely he gets both Destro and the Baroness under his mind control. And then slowly, there's a really cool panel. Again, I love these kind of break panels where you've got this, you can see there's chaos going on because the panels are bounced all over the place, they've been, it's broken glass, basically. And then all of a sudden it's getting calmer and calmer as Alpha 001 gets control of them all, and then turns into this Iron Grenadier, which is really creepy. They've all got green eyes, and they're now all under control of a Revanche, which is, terrifying.
Oh, a couple of amazing things I just got to comment on here. Number one, just jumping back to Diaz's work here for a moment, you have total carnage on the opening panel, and there's a real sense of kind of all-out action, all-out carnage. And over the next 4 pages, particularly when you get to that last page after Destro and Baroness have had the implants in the back of their heads, there's almost a sense of calm and peace.
Yeah.
It's just, that's all captured in the illustration, which is amazing.
Totally agree.
And then from the writing side of it, from Larry's side of it, you've got this incredible new turn of events. I actually thought he was just mopping up some loose ends, having Mars go in, take out the Blue Ninjas, take out the Revanche bases. Let's just tidy up these bad guys, get them out. Now, all of a sudden, they've become a major player in this whole episodic drama that's happening here.
Absolutely, and that's so true, because there was a real sense of tying up loose ends. That's what it felt like for the last, I don't know, 5 issues. It felt like there were a lot of things being kind of, sorted, and a line being drawn underneath them, and away you go. So it's interesting that he's continuing the revanche as a major player in the G.I. Joe universe. So I suppose it's not going to go away. I don't think it will completely go away. But then again, Cobra hasn't gone away, and Destro hasn't gone away, and the Dreadnoks haven't gone anywhere. So I feel like it's Larry kind of saying, well, this is a group, and this is a threat that just isn't just going to disappear, and you'll never see it again. I should add the Red Shadows in there. They went away for a little while, but Larry brought them back. It would be remiss of me not to mention the Red Shadows, wouldn't it? Let's face it.
Because they're the best.
Exactly. Eggs. Exactly. That's not a word. So then we go into... We flash over to Utah, and this is where we see the other subplot, isn't it?
This is, again, I thought this was something that had been put to bed already, but bringing Sightline back in, the new prosthetic leg is on, and again, there's a whole new setup happening here. It actually reminds me a little bit, I know there's a lot to talk about on these 4 pages or 3 pages, but he reminds me of the Atomic Man from First Strike.
Yes.
But this is a pretty cool setup. So we get a little bit of backstory on the prosthetic leg. They've checked it out to make sure that it is safe. They found a kind of a microprocessor transmitter embedded in the leg. And essentially, they said they've neutralized it, but they're going to use it as a tool to send disinformation back to Cobra. But Sightline just seems really psyched about his new leg, his ability to be, back in action, and clearly he has superpowers.
But pretty much, he can jump super bloody high now and I like the fact that on the illustration, the leg he's jumping off is the one without the prosthetic leg, but. I must admit, I do love the art in this all the way through. I just want to shout out to Nitho Diaz. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. It moves really nicely. The detail is just it's rich, and there's so much to kind of really enjoy and kind of soak in. We see Mainframe, and I must admit, when we talk about this there was a microprocessor and a transmitter in it. It screams to me that situation in Silent Option, where they were tricked because I think it was of a similar thing, wasn't it? It was like they found this device that Mainframe plugged in, and it gave them the wrong information, and that they used that information to then go to the site that they thought was where the site they needed to go next, and it turned out to be a trap. So it just, I don't know, it screams to me a very similar kind of scenario to that.
Is Mainframe's data unreliable?
You never. I wonder if can you imagine if he turned out to be a bad guy? Could you imagine?
There's a twist.
If he turns out to be the Prowl of, and even then Prowl wasn't a bad guy necessarily in the Transformers comics, but he did have an agenda. So I wouldn't, you never know. You never know with Larry. But from what I can see, it's just that last thing was just incompetence. And then we also get the kind of, this I found quite interesting, the training, because we're getting a couple of new characters, aren't we?
This is amazing. There's so much happening in this issue. So we cut now to this new subplot that's going on in here, and we see 4 Joes, 2 of them. Is it Joystick and Mongoose?
Yeah.
Kind of, look like they're the kind of new guys, and they're working with Muskrat, and is it not your man from Silent Option who goes around in his Torpedo?
Oh, it could be, couldn't it? It could be Torpedo. Yeah, but
it's that look,
They never say his name. I've just noticed that. They don't say his name, do they? Okay, well, that would be one for Anitho to tweet at us with. Who is the character with the black hair? But you're saying Torpedo, and that's a very good shout, because I think it probably could be. And what I do find quite interesting is obviously they're in this training simulation, as you said, with these new Joes, Joystick and Mongoose, who are named in the background, kind of at the back of the 4 characters. And they kind of raid a house in this very inner city... this urban Afghanistan style scenario. Yes. And they break in through the door, and there's a little girl with
olives or something.
Yeah, just nothing really, no threat, and they don't shoot her. And he's like, "Man, I almost shot her." And he said, "Yeah, but you didn't That's what counts. You get extra points for that. Half the time, all the new trainees just shoot her. So there's like and then you kind of think, what? And then it kind of phases out into this danger room scenario. And it's very X-Men, this, isn't it?
I love this. It's like the holodeck.
Yeah. In Star Trek, yes.
And and they're ready to go straight into another simulation. So as it sort of dissolves to kind of these kind of light blue tiles, you can start, as this scene closes out, they're asking Airtight to load up the jungle scenario.
Love that. And
it's kind of jungle creeper starting to fade in. It's really interesting where they're going to go, where Larry's going to take this, because he doesn't just throw this in as a throwaway. This is a setup for something else coming down the line.
I think just introducing new characters is always nice, and Joystick has been in the comic previously. He was manning a drone, I believe. And Mongoose, though, the name rings a bell. And again, if the listeners/viewers could chime in on whether they have seen those, or those characters have appeared in the run prior to today, then please do so, because we like to have that correct info at hand. But I definitely remember Joystick as a name. And Mongoose, it does have a ring to it, so I think they may be characters, because I mean they're effectively they're new trainees or Joes or whatever. That's said in that panel, and that could be what they are. But I've definitely heard those names before. And then again, we switch on over to San Francisco's BART. We're on the underground in San Fran, or just on a train in San Fran, and we have the two young kids who are basically kind of training to be martial artists on the train.
Milo's back. Larry's throwing Milo in here, and we also he gets a little cameo in 263 as well. So he's kind of keeping Milo on our radar, just a little bit. So maybe he's got some plans for Milo down the line.
Well, he's like the new Tyrone, isn't he? Like that kid that we thought was just randomly out of the blue, just in the comic, and then it was like, well, actually no, he was a child in the original Marvel run. Which we worked out after the fact, which was great. Thanks, guys, again for letting us know that. But Milo strikes me as he's like the next Tyrone. He's being trained by Budo and a number of the Arashikage guys, and I'm interested to see where they take that. And obviously, on I think this is a little bit of maybe Larry's life experience coming through. Kind of some of the racism he's probably, definitely the racism that he's encountered over the years in his life. People telling him to go back where he came from, and this country is for Americans. So there's this guy being abused basically on the same train as the kids of Milo and Roland. And these two kind of like skinheads are having a real go at this, like fairly older gentleman, but he looks in good shape. He's rocking the yellow and black. I wonder if that's an homage to, kind of Bruce Lee, Kill Bill, that kind of, kung fu deco that seems to, be attached to that era of movies.
You know immediately that these guys are dealing with a powerful individual.
Yeah.
And they're coming on full and heavy with the racism, with the abuse. It looks like they're about to get violent. And this older gentleman spots the two boys across the carriage from him. And he just looks over and he says, I see you shifting your weight on the balls of your feet. And I see the Makawara calluses on your knuckles. So he recognizes that these kids are training in martial arts, and serious martial arts. And he's like, stay put, don't get involved. And then these two thugs turn on the kids, and then our kind of, who I'm calling like this kind of new master, steps up and he says, I'm going to teach you the sound of one hand clapping. And they just laugh in his face. And then you get the whap with the single-handed clap. And I'm going to just say this, I've been practicing the one-handed clap all week. I cannot get a whap.
That's the loudest I can go. That's my left hand, hang on. It just sounds like we're whapping on live broadcast now, doesn't it? Let's
we're having
a massive whap. And then obviously you finish that by saying the art of martial arts is in attaining the level where you no longer have to use it. And that's like awesome.
Amazing sentiment. Like, that's incredible. Mind blown on that little piece there. That's super.
And then as we continue through, so that like little kind of thing happens, and those two thugs are left kind of like, Bebop and Rocksteady kind of have been left behind to scratch their own ball sacks. And then we go into the next area, and that's Staten Island, and we basically see it from the point of view, or I suppose the camera follows this bird flying around near the Joes, basically, and you've got the Vamp kind of pulling up, and you've got kind of new Snake Eyes and Scarlet, who basically are kind of looking to help, like, fix the Vamp after it's been through hell, and Stalkers just turn up to say, yeah, this is, can you sort this out and give an after action report, etc., etc. And they're like, yeah, sure, no worries. So they go to sort out the Vamp, and the bird flies really close to them, and Scarlet's like, yeah, that's not a bird, and she throws a couple of shuriken at it, and it's, again, a Cobra surveillance drone.
But of course it's revealed to us a little bit later where the source of that data is going, or where that data is going to, I should say.
Yeah.
Then we get another little flash. It's only 2 pages, and then we flash into this, other scene. So it's almost like an aftermath of Silent Option. It's a restaurant, maybe a Japanese restaurant, and you've got Granny Arashikage in there, Jinx, Dawn, and Helix sitting down to dinner. And they're having this, I suppose, trying to settle Helix back into some sort of kind of normal society.
Yeah, and then it's another thing that Larry's doing here. He's kind of, we touched on racism previously, and now he's touching on, I suppose, the view of homeless vets kind of thing. That kind of disregarding people that need help a little bit. And obviously you got one guy just saying, street beggars aren't welcome. Get out of here, remove this loser, smelly loser or whatever, and they're like, let's chill out here, let's help the guy, and they help him out and give him some food and so on and so forth, and he's like, thank you very much, and then they have this little kind of intelligent tete-a-tete about Wilfred Owen back and forth, which again is, I think, to me, that's like Larry showing off his how well read he is.
It's a nice scene, though. The guys, the younger Joes, and this older homeless vet, they've got a bond of kind of service. And I wonder if there's a little bit of setup for what's coming in 263 happening here.
Yeah.
No real kind of major plot development. I mean, a bit of character development. With Helix kind of adjusting back into the Joes. It's Larry working this character that he didn't create into his universe, and it's an homage to veterans.
Yeah, and again we get another, like, we're basically getting flipped all over the place. So we get like 2 pages of a place, of a scene, and then we're switched over almost immediately, and now we're in Springfield, and Cobra Commander and Dr. Mindbender in full garb, no less, like full ceremonial garb, including Cobra Commander's wearing a cape as well as Dr. Mindbender. They're both caping it up, are on the golf course, and they're literally just having a little game, and it's cute. I quite like this, and they're just basically talking about the fact that Cobra Commander knows fully well what Mindbender did with the prosthetic leg. And then, Mindbender saying, well, I noticed that you added the transmitter, so, it's obvious I replaced it with a smaller one in a less predictable location. And then Cobra Commander's like, we found that one too. And swapped it out for a transmitter that reports directly to me. So they're both having, it's like this little game of like who has the power in this situation, and it just keeps, each one thinks they're one step ahead of the other one, and in actual fact Cobra Commander has the upper hand at the end. I think that's quite fun.
He puts Mindbender off his push.
And it misses like by a millimeter, doesn't it? Yeah.
This Mindbender is ripped. Just gonna say that.
Yeah.
He is ripped.
Well,
wow.
There's no way you're going to walk around more or less topless with a cape on without a body like that.
Yeah, you've got to look pretty awesome to pull that off.
Mindbender makes more sense when you realise that he was modelled or based on a design of a kind of an old-fashioned muscle man. So, like the old kind of bald guys that would have a monocle and they would be like ripped, lifting barbells back in like the 1620s. I've gone far too far in my in my dates there. Like in like kind of Victorian strongman, I'll call him. So in like the late 1800s, early 1900s. So he's when you realise that's what he was based on, you kind of go, oh yeah, that makes sense. So, but yeah, he is he's all over the place in his design. It's brilliant. In any case, to finish the issue, the Televiper turns up with a Technoviper on a golf cart. And the Televiper's got his laptop open, and he runs over to Cobra Commander and Dr. Mindbender, and he's like, we've got footage of a certain Joe at the chaplain's assistant's motor pool in Fort Wadsworth. And he's pointing obviously at the image that the bird picked up of Snake Eyes and Scarlet. And it highlights the fact that his tattoo is clearly visible. And that leads Cobra Commander and Dr. Mindbender to believe that Snake Eyes is alive and he didn't die, and that now they have two Snake Eyes. And they talk about the Dawn Project, and then all of a sudden it's like a Mindbender's, well, you know, maybe there's something we can do about it, while he's twizzling his moustache.
Yeah. Mindbender comes out on top now after Cobra Commander's one-upping him about the transmitter earlier.
Yeah, so now he's got an edge to kind of to muscle his way back in, no pun intended. And then it finishes with Cobra Commander saying, "Yes, tell me more." So that will be continued, I guess, after 263, because when we get into that issue, we'll discuss what happens in that issue. But in terms of the overall issue, Brian, what are your thoughts, and what would you give it, and then finalise it with a potating, please?
A lot happening in this issue here. So there's some incredible twists and turns in the events in the Larry Hama Joe universe. I think the Revanche becoming now a major player when they were on the verge of being just written out of the whole thing is, I think it's a setup for some really exciting stuff. We've got Sightline with his new superpowers. We have these new Joes coming into play with and I think what the setup here is more about the holographic training than the new Joes.
Yeah.
Helix and Milo are still very much in the Hama universe, and you know, and the setup for Snake Hunt is, you know, the groundwork has been laid now. It's just
careful when you say that.
Hey, it's a great episode. The artwork is super. I just love when Juanito Diaz works on this line. It's superb artwork. The colouring, by the way, just got to give a shout out. Jay Brown does the colours.
Yeah.
Colouring on this is really spectacular. In particular, that opening scene of the battle around, with Alpha 001 Prime.
Yeah.
The colouring across those pages is just superb. I'm going in with a full-on 5 potatoes for this. Diaz is rocking it. Jay Brown is rocking it. Great work.
You've only done that because you haven't been on a comics burst in a while and you got all excited.
Yeah, that's it.
I must admit, it's an issue. Again, this is tying up some loose ends, but also laying the foundation for some new stories to be told. It's not packed with action, but it has moments of kind of intrigue, and again, it's a good issue. Yeah, I think Nitho Diaz's artwork is sensational on it. I think the colours look really just beautiful, and I think overall the team of Hammer, Diaz, Koeman, Shearer, and Brown. And I must say, I did see Brian Shearer when we were at Joe Fest just gone. It was a pleasure hanging out with you, sir. You and Chris Canada, a lot of fun. And I'm just going to say penis Mexican standoff, and that's just for Brian. So he probably won't even listen to this, and no one else will understand what the hell I'm talking about, and it sounds weird. Anyway, I'm going to give it a 3.5 taters, but only because it kind of winds back in terms of it winds back in the action, which I've come accustomed to in recent issues of Real American Hero, and obviously to have that almost like chill out kind of like the calm after the storm type feeling. It does, I feel like I want more, but again, some lovely stuff to talk about in that one. Anyway, let's shift on over to G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 263. As Cobra continues its relentless onslaught on a global scale, G.I. Joe is there to meet them in kind. It's tyranny versus freedom, heroes and villains will rise and fall, bullets will fly, blood will spill, and who and what remains when the smoke clears is anyone's guess. Some gave all is the name of this issue. And this is it's almost like a love letter, or not a love letter, but an homage to Veterans Day, to all of the fallen soldiers, not just from G.I. Joe, but kind of in the same, brought out around the same time as the U.S. Memorial Day, and all the kind of the remembrance for all the soldiers of the world that have died in battle, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, it's very poignant, and obviously as you go through the issue, you've got like hints to characters that you may have forgotten even passed away, but we start off with the main characters that we have probably all come accustomed to in G.I. Joe, and that's the long-range recon patrol of Stalker, Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, and then Dickie Saperstein, Wade Collins, and Ramon Escobedo, I believe. Escobedo. So basically, they're paying homage. It's talking about the two that died in the Long Range Recon Patrol of Dickie Saperstein and Ramon Escobedo. And the three of them go, well, Stalker and Storm Shadow go to the big kind of memorial at Washington DC, and they're basically like, they're trying to find the names on the stone and everything. And what I love here is that Larry put in loads of names of Herb Trimpe's in there, loads of people in comics that passed away, which I thought was really nice, like surrounding. You've got, I think it's Richard, where is he? Yeah, Richard Saperstein is in there, Richard S. Saperstein. So that's Dickie. Ramon is panels down. So you see Dickie Saperstein surrounded by all these comic legends, and it's just really, really like a nice touch, don't you think?
That's a really nice little nod there from Larry. It's I'm assuming it came from Larry and not from S.L. Gallant.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful little touch.
I believe Larry did include those though for the artist to include. I think he he asked for that to happen. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, I mean, and in fairness, that kind of does make sense. This whole issue is just a very beautiful. I think it's a beautiful issue. It's not full on action, but it's an engaging story, and this theme is something that the theme of Some Gay Ball. It doesn't matter what country you're from. You've got veterans, or you've got soldiers who gave their lives. So whether you're Irish or British or American, doesn't really matter. This still applies no matter where you are in the world. And Larry treats it very sensitively in this issue.
Totally agree with that as well. So something that there's a couple of things that crop up in that first couple of panels, and that's that Storm Shadow's talking to Stalker as they're kind of looking for the names on the wall. And he says, I hear you've been having those dreams again. And Stalker says, either Psych Out is violating professional confidence or Spirit has gotten uncharacteristically talkative. And I like that. It's like, you get a couple of Joe names kind of just coming up as, as little nice touches there. And then you've got Wade, who's there, putting a tub of Tabasco down for Ramon Escobedo, and they're doing the same thing. So he says, I guess Escobedo gets 2 bottles of hot sauce this year, says Storm Shadow as he puts it down, which is really cute.
Yeah, that's a nice touch. But just going back on something that you pointed out there, and Stalker having the dreams, we go all the way back. I don't know how many months it is. We had that kind of one shot, and we learn about Stalker's. He's having some real issues. Dealing with his psyche, his mindset.
PTSD, I suppose, wasn't it? Yeah.
And what Larry's dropping a little hint here, letting us know that this guy's not out of the woods, and this again could be a setup for maybe something that's going to happen later on, maybe when Stalker is in a crisis, and the next time he won't keep it together and save the day. He might actually put his team in jeopardy. I don't know, just speculating here, but it's nice that Larry's still dropping these little kind of character nuggets in.
That is true, actually. I that one shot, that he's clearly calling back to that. Definitely, yeah, it's a nice touch. And then we go from the memorial to Arlington, the big cemetery with all of the armed forces kind of dead, or basically all their kind of with their tombstones. It's quite a moving sight when you see all of those headstones. But it's Duke and Roadblock, and they're kind of going round and they're paying their respects to all of the Joes that passed away in the previous issues. And Roadblock even says to the Duke, okay, we've covered Avalanche, Blaster, Breaker, Blocker, Crazy Legs, Maverick, and Quick Kick. And he says that leaves Doc and General Flag. As I remember, they're in the same section. And again, it's like, and then they have a flashback. They find Flag's tombstone, and they lay a rose down and a flag. They salute it, and then they talk about the flash, and then you get a flashback of them talking about the mission.
That's a great little scene. I look how the art style changes into that kind of black and white as it rolls back, and you've got Duke and Roadblock racing into, I suppose, the spot where they're standing right now. And we've got a Cobra Rattler flying in, riddling the scene with bullets as it comes in over the funeral of General Flag. And Roadblock unlimbers the Madoose and basically lays waste to the Rattler. And that's Duke then, listen up, I'm your new first shirt. So it's the end of kind of one era in G.I. Joe and the beginning of a new era, all in the same day. And then that segues then into finding Doc's tombstone. And Doc's parents are there paying their respects.
And there's a really sad and quite hard-hitting moment where the look that Doc's mother gives Duke is like, initially there's a panel of her eyes and it looks like pure anger, and then she says like, I hated you for a long time, Hauser, I blamed you for taking our Carl away, and then she breaks down and is like, but then I forced myself to read his journals and I understood what you all meant to him and his sense of belonging and his loyalty to his comrades, and I was ashamed. So she's gone from like being really angry at them to like ashamed of herself for thinking those horrible things about about her son's comrades in arms.
This is a pretty poignant moment. It's just one page, and Larry scripted this brilliantly, and I think S.L. Gallant has done a top job illustrating this. And you mentioned the venom in Mrs. Greer's eyes when she's looking at Duke and the way she calls him sir. But then you get this kind of group hug shot at the end as the point of view seems to come out of the scene, and there's almost this peace being made between the two parties.
Yeah, and then we get a couple of other little not flashpoint. We get a kind of flipping around the globe a little bit more. We go back to San Francisco, and Budo and his kind of trainees, I guess Tyrone and Milo. So you got Tyrone and Milo and Budo, and they're basically meditation kind of prayer kind of scenario. Again, paying respects to the hard and the soft master who passed away many moons ago in the Marvel comics. We also get like another look, very similar look, because there was a silent issue when Snake Eyes passed away, which was quite sad and poignant as well, where all of the Joes lined up and they kind of paid their respects to Snake Eyes. So we go back to Utah and we see, I think, I'm gonna try and work out who they are. I haven't looked at this yet. Beachhead, Cross Country, Dusty, I'll come back to that one. Mutt and Junkyard, Recondo, Torpedo, Tripwire, and then going back to the front left of the front line, Alpine, Cutter, Gung Ho, Rock and Roll, Shipwreck, Not Sure, possibly Tunnel Rat, and I don't know. There's a couple that are so generic I can't really work out who they would be.
Well done, sir. That's some great calls there. And just you've got 16 graves.
Oh, Steeler is at the front next to Tunnel Rat. Yeah, maybe Short Fuse. I don't know. Okay, well anyway, that's what I think. And then obviously General Hawk comes out. Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
16 graves and 16 live Joes.
Yes, it's one for. Although I didn't notice. You know what? I did not realise that was a thing. I just thought that was who was left on base.
as many dead as there are live there to kind of mourn the dead. I don't think that's an accident.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. Actually, good, well spotted as well. And then obviously Hawk comes out with his receding hairline. Now he's looking a little bit older. Get your helmet back on, Hawk. And he basically kind of calls him out. Oh, it's Airborne, sorry. So Airborne is the one that I said was Tripwire, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's Airborne. Because he says Airborne, he says here, and that's the guy that's near the front of the line, at the back. And then obviously he's calling them out. So Avalanche is next to be called out, but he's not there because he passed away.
He's got to alternate between somebody who is present and somebody who's not present.
Yeah. Which again is a really, really interesting kind of thing. I didn't realize that was, what was done, but that's really cool. And then we go to Japan, and it is the Granny Master, as I like to call her, or Brick and Handbag Master, as I like to call her, and she is paying her respects at the Arashikage Temple to the soft and the hard master, and she prays for them, and then when she claps, in actual fact, and the red ninjas come out of nowhere, and she basically says, I thought to avoid this by coming here on a day that is not traditional in Japan, but I still came prepared with a brand new brick in my bag, and they all scarp her. She doesn't even turn to look at them.
It's brilliant. This is like a lovely moment of levity in an otherwise fairly somber issue, and that's a great little scene, the way they just scarp her.
Yeah.
She doesn't even break her pose. I love that.
The next one is a test for you, Brian. Do you know who this is in relation to? Do you know which G.I. Joe character that passed away for this particular scene in Darklonia?
Owen K. Bowhatter.
Well, Bowhatter isn't part of his name.
I don't know. I don't know who this is.
So Owen K relates to Owen King, aka Sneak Peek, who passed away about 16 times in the Marvel run because Larry kept forgetting that he'd killed him off. So Sneak Peek did officially pass away in this IDW run that Harry took over again. That Larry took over again. Harry Lammer, I'm going to call him from now on. And basically, Sneak Peek had this, he was close, or he had a partner in the resistance movement in Darklonia where he was in deep cover, called Catcher. And that's who they're trying to kill her, basically. They're trying to find her. And it turns out she's turned the tide on these two sniper guys and the sniper team, and she ends up killing both of them, which is quite harsh. She spits on them, I think, or it could be a bird. It could be bird, but I think she spits on them. Yeah, because it says spoot. And then he turns around thinking it's the birds, and there she is in the tree, and then dead.
Did you see Catcher? Well, I mean, we could be going back a few months. I'm thinking, would it be the Baroness one shot? Maybe I'm confusing it with somebody else. But Catcher's, I think recently, and within the last 12 to 18 months, we've had some Catch.
Yeah, that Baroness one shot was in Darklonia, wasn't it? Or it was somewhere like Barovia or somewhere like that, wasn't it?
Oh.
I can't remember, but it could well be the sniper that shot at Baroness. Could be her.
Could Catcher, yes.
Could be, because obviously she's part of the underground resistance movement in Darklonia. So, yeah, that could be. I wish I could recall that, but so with the comics, I read them, I review them, and then that's it. I don't really return to them apart from like if I'm going way, way back to start again or something. So the information just kind of flitters out of my head.
Let's put it out to the listeners and, let us know. Was Catcher the sniper who faced off against the Baroness in the Baroness one-shot or not?
Or are we just being crazy? You can use harsher words.
Crazy talk here.
And then we're back to Fort Wadsworth, Staten Island, and the motor pool. And
I love this. I absolutely love this. This is great.
And they're throwing a barbecue for all the chaplain's assistants and all the guys that aren't necessarily part of G.I. Joe, who think that the chaplain's motor assistant pool is a weird place because they seem to have more vehicles go in than come out, or vice versa. I think it's vice versa. And obviously you've got like the fact that they've noticed that these kind of standard issue kind of grunts have noticed there are a lot of killed in action plaques dotted around the place, 16 in total. And they're like, how does the chaplain's assistant's motor pool rack up 16 KIAs? And then you get Clutch, isn't it?
Clutch dodging all those heat-seeking missiles.
Amazing.
The best bit is the face, the expression on his face that SL Gallant is drawn on is just solid gold. It's brilliant.
And for those that don't know, a missal is a book containing the text used in the Catholic Mass throughout the year. That's just Larry's humour coming through, I think. But anyway, really cool. And this next part actually does get to me, and this is about Scarlet and Snake Eyes. And so Scarlet's on the Staten Island ferry. She asks for 2 hot dogs and 2 coffees. She puts them down, and then she just looks out over the edge of the boat and just cries. And it's like, you forget that, when Snake Eyes died, like everyone was kind of like shocked or a little bit kind of, but he's Snake Eyes, and you forget that there were these real strong relationships formed, and Scarlet hasn't had a chance really to mourn. She hasn't had a chance to do. They've just been like literally in the thick of the action since he passed away. She hasn't had an opportunity to really get it out of the system. So she's utilizing Memorial Day to kind of remember Snake Eyes, and it's really sad. This
is probably the most touching scene, and it is. You see Scarlet orders 2 hot dogs and 2 coffees, and she just parks them on the seat behind her, looks out over the sea or over the river, and just cries. It's very sensitively done, I think, in the writing and in the art style. Before it kind of again not leaving or staying with the Snake Eyes theme, it goes to the High Sierras. and you see timber on the ruined cottage, essentially, that, or the ruined log cabin that the Joes flew up in and placed in the Sierras for Scarlet and Snake Eyes. And he gives that sort of lone wolf howl out into the night, out into the night sky before they just wrap it up.
That's even sadder, the fact that Timber's like out there like howling at the moon as well. I mean, that's just so like, oh, poor Timber.
I know.
Anyway, a really poignant, really emotional and very touching issue of A Real American Hero.
It's a great example of superb writing from Larry Hama. It's not going to be your all action. Like, we've had a lot of action. It's rare Larry slows down the pace, but he's taken it right down in this one.
Kind of 2 issues now in a row have been quite chill out, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously 262 kicks off, big and loud, and then it kind of rolls back with obviously a lot of setup, introducing new ideas and characters. But this, I just think the writing is really strong in this. He's handling a sensitive subject. He does it brilliantly. He mixes in a bit of humor, a little bit of kind of setup, character setup with the likes of Stalker. The guy's on fire. I've been saying it every time we do one of these bursts. Larry is bringing the fire every single issue. He's doing it. It's some of his best work. 5 potatoes.
Brilliant. I'm actually going to give. I thought it was really, kind of. I would say like a change of pace, but the last couple of issues have been quite low burners, and this one is, it's got the emotion. It's got a lot involved in it. It's not your all action kind of stuff. There is a flashback in there with Duke and Roadblock, but for the most part, you're looking at remembering all those characters that have passed away in the comic that you may have not, again, as a reader, haven't had a chance to kind of think about since that happened. And that is something that does get kind of missed. There are a lot of characters in G.I. Joe that, and there's some of them in this group of Killed in Action that I absolutely loved. Quick Kick was one of my favourite characters, and being from the UK, he was huge in Action Force, massive character in Action Force. Crazy Legs I thought was amazing. I loved him as a figure. I thought he was so cool. Snake Eyes, again, like just, the best, one of the most iconic characters from G.I. Joe, if not the most. Well, he's getting his own movie, so he's got to be freaking up there, hasn't he? The fact that I loved the Euro Tiger Force and Sneak Peek, and the fact that he passed away. So there's a lot of stuff in there that you kind of, it's very emotional, and you feel like these characters in an actual personal real life way because you've grown up with them for years, haven't you?
Absolutely. Like, these are characters that go back to your childhood. They're not just characters that you've been following the last couple of years with this run. They're going back decades, and so it is a nod from Larry, not just for the characters, but obviously it's an homage, or he links it back into, as you mentioned at the start, the actual Memorial Day in America, and those sentiments resonate with all armed forces around the world.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it's a great issue. I didn't give it potating. I'll give it a 5 just for being a very poignant, emotional issue, and it reminds me of characters that I've missed and want back in some way, shape or form. Reminds me of those characters that we haven't seen for a long time, and it gives us an opportunity to see them again as well, which is interesting. And the cover, I mean, let's talk about that cover. It's really, really cool, isn't it, to have like a number of those characters that were killed in action. But some of the things that were pointed out that I thought were quite funny was that they're all firing their weapons, more the 3 of them firing their weapons at Snake Eyes. Like, he's like, it's like, geez, man, like, Breaker's just literally shooting him right in the back. Like, that is just a no. At least the other 2 can maybe shoot under his arms, but like, Breaker's like, no, I'm just going to aim directly into Snake Eyes' back.
I actually think he's shooting over his head.
I hope so.
That's going to be my call. He's aim. It looks like he's aiming high. That's a beautiful cover by S.L. Gallant. I'm actually looking at that. It's in the back pages of 262. But I've got, actually, my 263 comes with the variant cover B by Dan Fraga.
Right. Cool.
And he's got, this is a superb cover. You've got Tomax and Zamosh falling as if they've fallen through like a glass panel, and it's totally shattered. And as they fall, you can see the Cobra emblem on the floor.
So weird, though, for that issue, don't you think? Such an odd choice.
It's, yeah. It is.
It's amazing. Don't get me wrong; it's a beautiful cover. But what has it got to do with what's going on in that issue? Like, I kind of feel like they should have done a full-on, maybe like 5 or 6 very poignant kind of covers that maybe had all of the characters that passed away in G.I. Joe. I thought that would have been really, really cool. Like to have like a connected cover thing where you'd want to collect all of those issues, all of those different cover issues to get all of the characters that passed away. I think that would have been really cool. I think there's a bit of a missed opportunity there, especially after seeing this one and thinking that it could easily combine with, another issue.
They could have done a lot with the variant covers here. We do have there's a Roadblock variant cover, and that makes sense. It ties in with
the General Flag's story.
Theme.
Yeah.
There's the Greater Austin Comic Con exclusive cover, which has Snake Eyes, and you've got the rifle in the ground with the helmet sitting on top, and again that's reminiscent of what's happening in this. But yeah, the Tomax and Zamos, I mean, it's a superb piece of illustration, but I just don't get the relevance.
Yeah, I really do think they missed a trick on that one. But anyway, it's still amazing no matter what. And again, that brings us to the close of us looking at these issues. Brian, again, thank you for jumping on. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, bud. My pleasure. Love these comics. Love talking about them. And looking forward to being back for 264.
And then obviously it's right into, after that one, it's into Snake Hunt as well, isn't it? I have to be very careful.
Hey, yes.
Cannot wait. Also, tomorrow, by the time this gets out, because tomorrow I'm dropping Disorder of Battle on the 4th of July. So I'll wish all our American viewers a happy 4th of July, even though this isn't coming out on the 4th of July. This will probably be out on the following day, the 5th of July. Happy 5th of July, guys. So we're getting out close to Memorial Day, but we've got a bit of a backlog of issues that we've caught up now, because I don't think we're going to touch Transformers anymore. I think Paddy and I have decided that is just so poor. So we've decided against bothering with it anymore. So it's just going to be G.I. Joe Real American Hero, it seems, and related Joe comics from this point on. So apologies if you've been enjoying the Transformers comics bursts, but honestly, it's just so boring. We don't want to do it. So
if you've been enjoying the Transformers comics burst, get a life.
Go and find something else. In any case, thank you.
Real American Hero and start reading those comics.
Exactly. Anyway, Brian, thank you so much for jumping on, mate. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, buddy.
That's it for this instalment of the Full Force Comics Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host, Brian Hickey. See you next time. And as always, full force. Transformers. I'm just kidding. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback or questions. We have also started a Patreon page, so if you want to see your name up in lights on these videos or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/TheFullForce podcast, or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force. And a big shout out to our sponsors, Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, located at 601 Business Loop 70 West Suite 263, located in the Parkade Center, Columbia, Missouri. You can visit their website at distantplanetcomics.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/distantplanetcomics.